Ritika Saraswat is a kinesiology graduate of UBC who found her passion and calling in consultancy. Throughout her college life, she worked hard to make the right connections, get the right experiences, and most importantly, stand out. In her fourth year, she won the Canadian Management Consulting BC Student Award and is currently working in Deloitte as a capital analyst. She also started Redefined in 2022, a nonprofit that has helped over 30,000 international students find their footing. She's a public speaker, a mentor, and a founder, and she has so much more she wants to do. Stick with us as she shares her keen insights, practical skills, and experience knowledge in this episode of Unibeans.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more episode of Unibeans, a podcast where we talk about personal and professional development. And today we have with us, drum roll please, and it'll come there, Ritika Saraswat. I have been obsessed with her LinkedIn. I always show it to my friends. I was like, I'm gonna meet her one day. And suddenly Ritika was on my LinkedIn. She's like, yeah, let's do this. So my very first question to you, which I've been dying to know, is from kinesiology
Yes.
to consulting. Like, I'm in my program because in the international economics program because people want to do consulting.
Yes.
From kinesiology to consulting, how?
So yeah, I know the how is very difficult for people to put together.
Yeah.
But I think for me, a big part of it has been that, like, I don't think I ever imagined it, right? Because when I moved from India to Canada, like, I came in with the idea of wanting to become a doctor. Like most South Asian kids, right? You know, you're told, oh, you want to help people, well, become a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I think for me, doctor was the option because I love science.
Yeah.
Right? So I came in with the idea of just that, which is why kinesiology, because it aligns with science. But when I came into the degree, I just realized, you know what, there are a lot of these smart people in this room who are obsessed with just being doctors. What I was obsessed was with impact. I wasn't obsessed, like being a doctor wasn't the process I wanted to adopt to become or create that impact. And that's what I realized once I got into that degree. But I never really switched my degrees either because I'm someone who likes finishing what I started. You know, I'm a big believer in that. And for me, I was still learning something new and I enjoyed what I was learning. So I continued with that. And then I think along the side, I just started building experiences in the consulting space or in the business world overall, right? Because what I've realized at the end of the day, no matter what education background you come from, you can get any opportunity you want as long as you have done it for someone else and you can do it even better for them, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you can show that to anyone and give them examples and evidences of what you have done for others, anyone's willing to hire you. For them, in that case, your education would not matter. And you see that happening today where sometimes even a degree is not mattering anymore to people, right? People are able to get jobs even with just diploma programs or certificates, or sometimes even with none, based on just their creativity and how they're approaching those problem solutions and the results you bring someone in. So for me, I just emphasized on showing the employer those evidences of the work I've done, the kind of outcomes I helped others get, and how for a company big like theirs, how I can help them amplify that so much more because of the number of access to resources I would have. And that just made it so much easier for them to see that transferability. And I leveraged my uniqueness in a way of being from a different industry as a strength to actually stand out of most people. Because even, you know, before that, a lot of case competitions I went to, I joined a lot of case competitions with sort of friends of mine, right? And I was the only science kid most often than not. But that actually helped me stand out amongst everyone just because I was different, right?
That makes sense. Because people are like, oh, we are in a degree, but then they're like, I want to do business, but I don't know what to do.
Exactly.
And so that's why I think your story sort of inspires people from like different fields, but then you still made it work. But also, how do you thought of becoming a career coach then?
So that I don't think I ever thought of it. I never envisioned that. But I think the day I kind of made the transition, right? For me, I think the biggest thing was, especially, you know, being an immigrant, being an international student, and being someone who was initially so stuck up in part-time jobs and never really saw a way out. For me, I think the day I was able to get that way out, and not just get it out, but create something amazing out of it, that day I realized, okay, you know, for someone like myself, who I always think is someone who came into this country as a very average South Asian girl, you know, wanting with just big dreams, which is most of us come like that.
Yeah,
right?
all of it,
And I was able to make that pivot in my life of like complete 360 of the two different types of people just by getting access to the right resources, the right mentors, the right guidance, and the right opportunities. So I realized if I can explain or share what I've learned, maybe I can help someone what took me 2 years to figure out, maybe takes them a month to figure out. Right? So it just started by me actually just sharing my journey on LinkedIn so that others can just learn from it earlier and maybe not have to spend 2 years doing it. Right? But then I think people just wanted more and more of it, and so a lot more people started reaching out, and then it got out of hand, and that's when it started making into a formal capacity of when I started then formally taking in calls, even there was compensation involved with it as well to make sure I was giving quality time. And then I think over the last 2 years, I've been able to work with about 10,000 students, helped a lot of them land jobs, etc., get any opportunity they want, whether it be entrepreneurship or the classic jobs. And so once I did that, I think that's where the career coach title kind of came up.
Yeah. And then you also have a non-profit, Redefined. Would you like to tell what it is about?
So Redefined is my baby, obviously. Redefined is a non-for-profit, as you mentioned. It started about a year and a half ago, where the main idea is of empowering immigrants and newcomers by creating access to all of those things I mentioned, creating access to a community, resources, mentors, who are individualized and catered to their specific needs and challenges. Right? And that's why the term redefined also comes into place, is because the whole idea is helping immigrants redefine themselves and their capabilities so that they can get opportunities that are defined by them, right, at the end of the day. Because I think for a lot of us, when we come into a new country, you are figuring so many pieces out beyond just the professional piece that you sometimes might find yourself lost, and you might find yourself and your goals being dictated by what others tell you can do or cannot do.
That is
right. And I think the biggest piece is understanding that you hold the pen and you have the book and all you got to do is write. And I think for me, like, that is revolutionizing, right? Just knowing that you have that power. So for me, the more we can get that word out there, the more important it is. So with Redefine, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And obviously, one, we do that is by creating access to a community which is for immigrants by immigrants. That piece is very important because representation matters. And for us, it's even more specifically within immigrants is international students. So, for international students, by international students. The second thing is creating access to, like those mentors as well who are representative of your age and demographic.
Correct.
Right? Because if you meet someone who's 25 years ahead of you in life, you might leave the session feeling more intimidated and motivated, to be quite
That
honest.
is correct. That is correct.
Versus when you're in the session with someone who's 2 years ahead of you in life, and you're like, wow, you know what? If that person can be there, and if they were in this seat 2 years ago, if I do the things that they're telling, I will definitely be there. There's no doubt about it, right? And you now feel a more sense of security and control into actually making it happen because it seems achievable. Right? So I think that is the biggest piece, and I think the second is creating access to like resources and programs. So we have a lot of programs within Redefined, like internship programs, fellowship, scholarship programs, pre-departure programs, all focused on the key challenges, some of the ones that we face, like being like the constant questioning of non-Canadian experiences, right? That comes up.
That is
right.
Correct,
So the internship program we have helps students bridge that skill gap and create like relevant Canadian industry experiences by us tying them up with different non-for-profits and startups within the city, right? So even though they're technically working free of cost, but it is practical hours that they develop of on-field experience, and now in just a month or two, they have relevant industry experience that they can add on their resume, and we give them the quantifiers as well on the impact they have created. So now not only do they have an experience, but they can quantify the experience as well and actually align it to their future job opportunity. So that is just one of the many programs that we have. And then obviously then is like a big mentor network that we try and do. And even resources, which we're trying to work on. We're applying for a lot of grants, but we have scholarships as well that we give out. 2 scholarships of $1,000 each every year, or not quite a lot. But that's something we want to do more of moving forward. But yeah, those are a few of the things.
People go check out Redefine because it's like, because as a second year student, they like, I apply for jobs and they're like, okay, we need experience, but then for that, like,
you need to give
it's a loop. So I was like, and it's all my friends are like, we should apply to these big companies, we want to start early, but then they're asking for experience which we don't have. So please check it out. And then in terms of your in general because you're an entrepreneur as well, Has there been a point where you were like, okay, now I just can't do it anymore, but then you have to like uplift yourself and say, oh, okay.
I think it's never been like I cannot do this anymore, but I think it's been a constant questioning of am I doing enough instead. Yeah, like I think for me, like I think a lot of us, I think I'm a high achiever, and I think for a lot of us who are high achievers, we have a tendency to constantly think we're not doing it all, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And I still till this day feel I'm not doing enough. Because there are so many immigrants you can help. There are so many people you can support. I haven't helped everyone land a job. Right? I haven't been able to inspire every single person out there. So there's so much more to do. So for me, I think that has been the constant frustration, which has sometimes led me to be like, maybe I'm not the right person for this because I'm not able to deliver to the level I want to deliver at. So for me, I think it operates in quite the opposite way sometimes. But I truly enjoy the work, and I think I do it like beyond my, not even a 9 to 5, like a 9 to 8 or a 9 to 9, is because I'm so invested in others' success. Because I think like I wish someone did it for me. Like so many things I think of, like today as well when I was telling you, right? I met the associate director for lifelong learning or whatever at UPC, Rob Kim, and when I was having the conversation with him, I realized, why didn't I have this conversation while I was in university? Right? Like now I'm someone, I'll always reach out to top CEOs, etc. I don't mind, which is great. But I was like, imagine UPC itself has so many resources. I wish someone had told me how important it is to reach out to people like this, be strategic, know what your end goal is. Because by the time I would have graduated, not only would I have focused on my academics and building my skill sets externally, which I actually did most likely outside of UPC. I never really leveraged UPC any resources, to be honest, right? But that made me realize I never leveraged the network that UBC offered to me as much as I could. And I think a lot of students don't either, even till today. How many students do you see setting up a call with the different deans at UBC? None. That is something you should definitely do. Why aren't we doing it? By the time you graduate, you have a contact and a great relationship with one of the deans. They have access to resources. They are one of the primary decision makers, right? Now I know a lot of them. Why? Because indirectly the networking I started doing once I got out of university helps me know CEOs who know these people, right? Those decision makers. But I could have easily made that process a lot easier
if you were to start just
because now you have access to them. You are a part of their institution. You're paying them money, right? They are invested in having that conversation with you. So even if you would reach out to Rob Kim, in fact, if anything, you are more likely to have that conversation with him than an alumni from UBC who's based out of UBC, right?
That's correct.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, we are sometimes not even seeing the opportunity we have here. We're just looking outside. Right? So that would be my number one tip as well, in a way, is for any institution you're a part of, try to get in touch with the top C executives, the decision makers in the rooms. You never know when you might need their support. And build a very good friendly relationship with them such that you're buddies, right? You see, they will open up so many more doors for you, right? Because one of the concepts I think a lot of us don't realize is this idea of sponsors, right? Beyond mentors, you need sponsors in your life. Sponsors aren't people who are supporting you just financially, right? They could be people who do that as well, like investing in your startup or whatever it is. But they are most likely people who open doors for you when you are not in those rooms as well. Or people who cheer for you when you're not there in that room, right? And those are usually people who are 20, 25 years ahead of your life. Right? So these are those CEOs I'm talking about. These are those associate directors, etc. that I'm talking about, who you bring on board as those sponsors, because they have access to what? Money. They have access to what? Resources and contacts.
Their knowledge in general,
Knowledge as well. But the biggest thing is the network, right? They have spent 25 years building that network, right? If you have people like them, you can build that same network in 2 years or 5 years. That took them 25 years to build, right? So it's all about getting strategic like that.
That's what we talk about in Unibeans also. It's like, you have to start early. People are like, okay, we'll figure out, we have to like focus on grades. We're like, no. I think the earlier you start, it would have been. Because I remember you were a food service worker somewhere at a restaurant. And then I've seen her LinkedIn so many times. And then you talked about it as well on your post, like you have to start early. And then one thing I love about you, even if it's your saddest day or something, even if you made a mistake, you'll post it on LinkedIn. she's just so open on the platform that you just go through life saying, okay, this was mine, and it's
okay. Her life went up and down, left and right.
No, because some days I'm just crying. I had a bad day, and I opened her post. Okay, she also had a bad day.
You're like, let's go.
You've mentioned a time where you've talked about glass balls and plastic balls.
Yeah.
You want to emphasize on what that is?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny how, like, in a recent podcast I did in Montreal as well, they brought up this same point.
Because
and I think
it's interesting.
And I think I mentioned this like a year before I wrote this post. Almost. Or maybe like 8 months ago. But it's been a while. So
yeah.
You did your research. But no, the idea behind it is, so glass balls, as we all know, are fragile, right? If it drops, it's going to break.
Yeah.
A plastic ball won't break. It'll keep bouncing, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that in life, we have to prioritize what are our glass balls and what are our plastic balls.
Okay.
So what are things that we cannot take lightly at all, which are irreversible, like your loved ones. Once lost, are lost forever, like a glass ball.
Correct.
Right? But even something like career sometimes, depending on what phase of your career you are in, could potentially be more of a plastic ball, right? Let's say if you lose an award today, you can always apply for another one, right?
Correct.
You lose a funding opportunity today, you can always apply for another one. An exam, if you miss one day today, or if you score less this time, you can always have another opportunity to study harder and get another thing. But that's why I feel like that concept is so interesting, because it helps you and this will change depending upon the stage of life you're at, but it just helps us, you know what are your non-negotiables, right? And it helps put things in perspective.
Correct.
And I think that earlier on we start identifying what those glass balls are for us and what those plastic balls are, it'll make life a lot easier to prioritize, and prioritization is the only way to be successful, because a lot of us have to be doing multiple things all at once. Correct. Right? And I think you can't be doing everything at your highest percentage, at your highest potential every single time. Correct. And the only way you can do that is by the prioritization. So I use that concept to prioritize, because there may be a stage of life where for you, spending time with family might be more of a plastic ball, because you're like, you know what, maybe I cannot spend time with them now, or maybe I cannot fly down now with them, but I can always fly down the next time. Correct. Now what's most important is me getting that opportunity, because now is the hiring season, right? So it depends whatever that is, but I usually like to use that concept to help me put things in perspective, like even things like your health, right? Spending time with your loved ones. We sometimes forget those things a lot, but you have to realize how that is a glass ball, because once gone is gone forever. Right? So that needs to be one of the things on your priority list for always, right? So it's just about defining what it is for you. It's going to be different for everyone. It cannot be the same. And I won't say it should not be the same, but it most likely never will be the same. And it'll also change phase by phase. When I was in university, it was very different. When I'm now, it's very different. And I know moving forward, in the next 3 years in my life, it'll be again very different, right? Yeah.
And then after you've achieved so much, where do you see yourself again in the next 5 years? What do you aim to do? Because I don't know where ahead can you go.
No, there's so much.
There's so much to do, but then still, what do you personally want to do?
I think one of the biggest things first I want to do is I want to definitely get my name on Forbes 30 under 30.
You are already there.
No, that was a manifestation thing that I did, guys. Oh my god, did you all read the post? I think everyone, most people read it, and that's why the comments were like, oh, you got me there, kind of a thing. Did you read the comments?
No.
Okay, so read the comments. That was a manifestation thing for me, because a lot of my friends got it, and they were like, you know what, it'll be funny. You put it now and let's maybe see next year you get it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. So I made the post saying, hey, this is me manifesting Forbes 30 under 30 for next year, right? So I haven't gotten that yet, but hopefully soon.
Of course.
So that's definitely one of the things I want to do. And honestly, for a lot of these things, I'll get into this maybe later on as well, but I've come to also realize a lot of these recognition and awards, it's not always based on capability. Most oftentimes than not, it's based on accessibility. Who gets to know about these opportunities? How early do you apply?
That's the thing.
Who nominates you for these things? It's all about that, right? So sometimes when you even get these accomplishments, you sit there and you realize you may not actually be the most accomplished person in the room to be getting that award or to be getting that recognition. But you may get it because you may be privileged, whereby you knew someone who knew someone else who then nominated you, right?
Or
you just ended up being at the right place at the right time. Like, I'm sharing this is because I think early on in my career, I was very obsessed with just running after awards because I thought it dictated my credibility in the market.
That's
right?
what I'm doing. Yeah.
And even till this day, to a big extent, people do relate your credibility to the awards you have. Because see, only the day you have awards can you sit down and say, oh, awards don't matter. If you say it without any awards, people are going to be saying, yeah, obviously you'll say it because you haven't got any, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like the reason I want to still keep winning a few, especially the bigger ones like the Diana Award, the Forbes 30 and 30, not because of my own sake, because the day I get those awards, then I want to sit down, have a conversation and be like, hey, these don't matter, right?
Yeah.
Because there are so many more people out there like doing so much more than we can ever imagine and doing it so much more selflessly, but we may just not know about them. Right?
Yeah.
Forbes may not know about them. That's the only difference. Right? So that's, I think, one thing as well. I think second thing is I definitely want to see myself like even teaching in the future. Like, as a part-time professor, I want to teach. I want to be one of the youngest professors if that's possible. That's one thing also I want to do. And I want to create my own, like, with Redefined as well. I want to go full-time with Redefined because I see a lot of potential. And my public speaking career, I want to invest more time into it as well. Yeah. I get a lot of opportunities, but sometimes I'm not able to give my all to all those opportunities. So I'm hoping to invest more into that as well. Those are at least the first few things.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then one of the last questions I have is, what's a good advice that you'd give to university students? That, okay, this is how you can stand out because there's so much competition, I cannot tell you. Yeah. I remember one of my classmates like, oh, I got a strategy intern at PwC and she's first year. Yeah. And I'm like, how much can I do, man? How much can I do in life? Like, how do we stand out?
I think it starts by you understanding the why and the purpose behind things, right? Like, why you even want to stand out. Like,
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one of the first things, because one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of students or youth overall making at this time on age is that we all are just on this wheel of running, right?
Yeah.
We're all just running on the treadmill with no stop button happening.
Correct.
When you don't stop, you're not getting time to reflect and think about why you're even running in that direction. Why are you running at the same pace as everyone else around you? Why are you running like in the same way everyone else is running, right? We never take time to think about that, but we just keep running. And sometimes when you reach the end, you're like, wait, I don't think this was even something I wanted, right? So I think one of the first things or advice I would give to any university student, right, is while you're a student, leverage the flexibility and the opportunity and the time you have to really figure out who you are and what you want to be. I think that lies at the core of everything. Because if you don't know what the end goal is, how will you get there, right? Mm-hmm. The first thing of being successful in life is by knowing what that end goal is. And that end goal can never be a job. That end goal has to be much more than that. A job, entrepreneurship is a part of getting there. Right? The end goal can be, oh, I want to make X money, or I want to impact X people, right? I want to do X collaborations, whatever that is, right? Define what that end goal is first and take time to figure it out. And the only way you can do that is by trying multiple things. Get your hands dirty, participate in different clubs, try different things. If you fail, so what, right? Everyone else will. At least fail now instead of failing later on, right?
Correct.
You might as well fail while you're in university than once you're out there in the real world where you actually have no chances of getting back up sometimes. Right? And you have a lot more responsibilities on your shoulders, right? Yeah. So I think that's the number one thing. The second thing is, once you know what that is, I think invest the time into figuring out what that plan also looks like and keep yourself accountable to it. I think today the reason a lot of us are frustrated sometimes when we're not able to get opportunities is because we know we're not putting in everything that's needed to get that opportunity. Correct. And I can guarantee you that as well. For anyone who's even listening, and you never have to answer, right? Think to yourself, whatever you have written down you want to achieve, have whatever steps you have written down as well in terms of how you can achieve those things. And there will be, some of those tangible steps, 1 to 2 steps that you should be doing every single day that'll take you to that goal.
Yeah.
You all should also know that the day you start following each of those steps consistently every single day, you will get to that goal no matter what, within the timeline that you set. But the reason a lot of us aren't getting there is because putting in consistent effort is one of the most challenging and the most difficult things to do, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us aren't performing to 100% every single day, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it has to be 100% every single day, but a lot of us aren't even performing to the level we need to be performing every single day, right?
Yeah.
So it's never about, and I think for the longest time people thought I'm talking about hard work. I'm not talking about hard work, I'm talking about smart work. most people or students, let's say, especially international students I know, spend on average 14 hours every day, 12 to 14 hours working, right?
Yeah.
But how they spend those hours working greatly impacts the kind of opportunities they get access to. You have one student who's spending almost 10 hours, let's say, in university or college just studying, right? And the remaining 4 hours at a part-time job, versus you have someone else who's spending the 14 hours, let's say 6 hours at university, the remaining 6 hours doing like network, maybe 4 hours at a part-time job, and the remaining 3-4 hours doing networking, creating their brand on LinkedIn, etc. The kind of opportunities those both people get even before graduation and after will be highly distinctual. But both of those people invested the same hours every single day, right? And that's when we sit there wondering, oh, why am I not getting opportunities that other person is getting? Well, it's because they're doing something that is different than the 80,000 other people who are applying to those similar opportunities, right? So that's what you have to think about, whether it even be jobs, right? Something as simple as jobs. When you're applying, if you do exactly what other 10,000 applicants are doing, how do you expect the employer to make it, how does it become easier for them to select you versus the other person, right? How are you making the job easier? Maybe by getting to know them, you make the job easy, because now when they look at your resume and they see your name, they're like, hey, I've connected with that person, right? And now it's easier for them to pass on the resume to the next person, to be like, hey, move them to the next stage, because they already have that connection and relationship with you, right? So it's about thinking is, what are you doing that makes you go from one of many to one of a few people? Because that's the goal that we want to do, right? So when you submit your resume and cover letter, you are doing the bare minimum, right?
Yeah,
and I know in the moment it feels like a lot, but that is the bare minimum. And maybe the next 2 years, networking and having a brand on LinkedIn will become the bare minimum, and there'll be something else which makes you stand out, or the X factor, right? A lot of people are networking even today, but are they effectively networking? That's the real question, right? Having just coffee chats with people is not called networking. Networking is about building long-term relationships, right? When I got into Deloitte or any of the other firms, I got into 4 out of the 5 jobs I applied for. I only applied to 5 ever, right? Why did that happen? Is because when I applied, I was incredibly passionate about each opportunity I applied for, and I was obsessed with the work that the companies did in those specific spaces. The reason a lot of us don't get opportunities either is because, again, to that back thing, we are running behind something because our friend is also running behind it, right? We have never really thought about why we are applying to that job, right? Just because someone said, oh, digital marketing is on the rise, go apply for that job, right? Or you apply for it thinking, oh, this is my 70th application, so maybe if I apply to another 20, I will increase my chances of getting the job. But that never really happens, right? It's about quality versus quantity, not the opposite way around, right? So we are investing our effort at the wrong places than where it's needed. Effort is still being put in fact, a lot is being put in, but you have to realize that a lot of other people also were doing the same thing, and they're also putting the effort in the same places. And sometimes all you have to do is reflect and try and understand the process, try and understand the employer's perspective, and think from their side, what will make their job easy, right? If you're sitting on the other side with 10,000 applications coming to your doorstep every single day, you're going to get frustrated beyond a point, especially when every application looks the same,
yeah,
right?
Correct.
So what are you doing different? So I think that's where the thinking needs to go, where I think a lot of us aren't doing. We're all still thinking how we thought 2 years ago, and are still following the same spreadsheet that was written down for us then, right? With no scope of reiteration or improvement. So all I'm saying is, please wake up and adapt, right? Stop doing what everyone else is doing. Take time to think, reflect, and be like, wait, is this even the right approach, right? And come up with your own approach for it as well. And you'll see it working a lot better. Initially, it'll take time. Or technically, it doesn't actually take time, but we mentally think it's taking time because you haven't sent anything tangible, right?
Yeah.
Like an application.
Yeah.
But in the longer term, it's going to fare you very well because, yeah. I can keep talking about this. So that's
it's so moving, because whatever you said, I am going through that right now.
Yeah.
Like, there was this position I have to apply for because it's just in demand. It's just so famous. And I told one of our career coaches here at the VSC, I was like, I want to apply. And she's like, why?
Yeah.
And I didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. It just seems cool.
Exactly. No, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's in fact still a better answer. Than some people will be like, I don't know, I just want to. Right?
Yeah.
Increasing my chances.
Yeah.
Right?
And people are just so desperate to put something on their resume.
Yeah.
They're just like after something that they really don't care about. And that's so important that you told me that you have to be passionate about your job. People are not these days.
No, People can be, but they're not taking the time to even figure out what their passion is. That's why if you ask a lot of youth and young people today, they don't even know what their passion is. Why? Because they've never taken out the time to reflect and understand what passion even is in the first place, right? And I think that it's easy, like, think of it this way, right? When you're sitting on the employer side, it's very easy. An employer, they are used to seeing hundreds, thousands, 100,000 applications, right? They know when someone's passionate about it versus not. It's very clear. You will have candidates sometimes coming up into interviews without even knowing completely about the company, right? And I always sit there thinking, really? If it was that easy, every person right now walking on the street would have a job in their hands or would have their dream jobs in their hands. But the reason they don't is because sometimes we may not even know what our dream job is, right? And we're just running, and maybe job is not your thing. It's entrepreneurship, right?
Maybe.
It could be that too. But the earlier you start exploring, the earlier you'll figure it out as well. Everyone's figuring it out journey is different. But the point is, are you even investing the time and the effort to figure it out? That for me is the biggest first step, right? And then once you know what your passion or end goal is, I have no doubt you'll know how to get there. Everyone will know how to get there. You just need to first spend that to identify. And that takes the longest time sometimes. Yeah.
That is, oh my god, I can't say, because usually I don't listen to people, and sometimes on my podcast I do listen to people, and I'm like, that is so true. Oh my god. Slay. That is all for today, and thank you so much for coming and taking out the time.
Yes.
And yes. Bye.
Bye.